what we should recommend to our advocates who are assisting relatives whose paperwork has been taken. And we also find that in some of our domestic violence or our IPP cases, which is, I just forgot the name of the acronym, apologize. So I just wanted to see, I'm trying to get on my Zoom just to see if he's on the call, but Vital Records, are you on the call this morning? We had a pretty lengthy discussion yesterday with President Nigrin, the council did, regarding access to IDs. So,
Madam Chair, good morning. This is Lorraine. I don't see anybody from Vital Records.
okay. So what we could do, Lorraine, if they get on the call, just let me know. Sorry, I think our system here, I'm just slowly getting on. So let's see. So I wanted just to mention for those who are on the call, we will, like for the state of Arizona, we're working, just met with Coconino County Supervisor Lena Fowler, and she has an office in Tuba City. And so she's helping relatives get access to a delayed birth certificate. I thought this was an issue just with our older population who were not born in a hospital, but it does sound like there's individuals who are, post high school and never had a birth certificate, and now we're seeing some of our children who the family didn't have a name at the time in the hospital and never came back to properly submit the paperwork for a birth certificate would now have to apply for a delayed birth certificate. So colleagues and those on the line, why this is important, what we found is when Chair Charles Moon, our task force member, went up to Minnesota for the Office of Violence Against Women tribal consultation, they were on heightened alert, and Chair Charles Moon did let us know that she had to be escorted by local community members because the women, our Native women up there, are scared that they will be abducted by either federal ICE agents or individuals who are pretending to be ICE. And so it is a situation where now they are wearing lanyards, I believe, with their information in the lanyard and also a whistle. And so what we want to do is learn from what's happening in Minnesota and make sure, especially for a state like Arizona, that our relatives have the proper document and continue to provide that information. So that's how we're pulling together our efforts here in working with our vital records to make sure that we have it.
Madam Chair, are you still there or did you get cut off?
Sorry, I transitioned to my Zoom. I'm back. Okay, so I am here. I just wanted to let the team know, and I appreciate it. So I realize that we're live streaming. So it's important to note that that's a challenge currently happening. We have a few cases that we're monitoring, and working with the state of Arizona. They're very particular about individuals' birth name, location, and so as a nation, we'll have to continue to advocate and make sure that we provide those proper documents for citizens who are taken into federal ICE custody. I wanted to give that update, and we'll continue to monitor. But for this call, I wanted to see, Twyla, are you on the call and do you have our agenda? see. Now I could see who's on the seat. Okay. Well, before Twyla gets on the call, Dr. Gonzalez, can you give us an update on the MMDR data team?
Sure, thank you, Delegate Crotty. We're in the process of we're continuing working on the documentation necessary to build a prototype. We received direction last week from Navajo Tech to proceed building the prototype independent of the dialogue going on between the DAP leadership and the epicenter regarding hosting and co-location services organized by the epicenter through Accenture, who's their co-location and hosting site that they've contracted with. So we've been released of that responsibility. So we're now proceeding with completing the documentation necessary to build a prototype. We've been slightly delayed because of the, I'll say, political discussions on Navajo over the last 30 to 45 days. We'll get back on track. I apologize for the delay.
Okay, okay, appreciate it. So in terms of our end as a task force, what is needed from Navajo Nation law enforcement?
We probably do need to go back to the public safety just to confirm and make sure that there's if there's any possible way to get any type of data from their system. For the purpose of the prototype, and this is a discussion I'm glad to have at a later date, is it's probably unlikely they're going to make much data available to us. So I think we're going to build a prototype as a proof of concept rather than closer to a functional product, because we can't seem to get alignment with Navajo police data that they're using to support MMDR cases into other systems. There's hesitancy. There's not necessarily, does not appear to be an interest in doing that, at least short term. So it may take a little more time and energy to do it.
Okay, so have you been able to find any Navajo Nation law enforcement data online? I did send out a federal data reporting.
Right.
From,
we certainly are we're expecting to use the same data that of the public data that NamUs makes available and that the FBI makes. I mean, we're going to use the available data from the police organization, from the law enforcement organizations that they eventually publish. It's the tracking of the case that we are not likely to get, at least in the initial phase. We'll plan for it, but it's in order to move it forward, we don't want that to delay the development of a prototype. So there's still some debate, some discussion that needs to be had with the police about whether or not they're going to make it available, under what circumstance. And at least to date, they've not been willing to extend that offer. And this is part of the discussion we were having with the epicenter. They directed the DNA Action Plan data group to use the epicenter infrastructure, the technology, and some of the tools that they've made available for their reporting requirements as part for all DNA Action Plan projects. And that's what's slowed us down, because we tried to get hold of the epicenter. They were not responsive. The epicenter put together a proposal for DAP leadership. We have an amount that's available, but not much more detail than that. So we were slowed down, basically. It would be helpful to find out the details behind the epicenter's request for funding. It's about $500,000, $250,000 a year for hosting, co-location, and other data services. But we've not been successful at getting that information to date.
Okay, and so Dr. Gonzalez, and I've been part of, well, a majority of the conversations trying to get law enforcement data. The last thing that I can recall as chair is at one of our meetings, Chief Silversmith made a commitment to work with the data team and get on a call. And I think that was early December. And when we were on the call, law enforcement did not attend the meeting.
That's correct.
Our last attempt to get data from Navajo Nation law enforcement?
Actually, I reached out to the epicenter folks a couple times, and we had one conversation with the individual who's responsible for the technical effort from the epicenter to work with Accenture. The following discussion, again, we put another request out to meet regarding their requirements and how we might either use, share, or extend the MMDR application to support some of the I'll say the data warehousing portion or the data reporting portion of the project, and we did not get a response. And yes, that we believe that the DAP leadership is directing these types of issues to the data group. We just haven't seen, and I've been on the DAP meeting calls. They're not participating, and we can't seem to get the epicenter group to coordinate their technical planning with us as well. And therefore, okay, that's why. So I apologize. That's why NTU decided to direct us to not build the prototype contingent on an expectation we would be sharing any of the infrastructure with the epicenter or their consultants, and that we continue on building the prototype as a proof of concept.
Okay. Yeah, that's unfortunate, because here at home on Navajo, we see a lot of PRs and a lot of conversation about data sharing and this movement. But so if you could summarize what is our need from EPI and our need from law enforcement, that would be helpful in terms of what we would need to have a functional database and the type of information that we would need. Because the challenge there is, relying on NamUs. They have already provided a report that they also delay uploading missing individuals because they're waiting for Navajo Nation law enforcement to verify. So this is an issue that I'm going to have to bring before the Law and Order Committee as their oversight, and see how they're set up in terms of how they collect their data and how that's being provided. I have a Navajo Nation quarterly report that we received yesterday. It's just over 200 pages. I'll provide that to the team here that's on the data team. If you want to, look through that and see from the law enforcement side what kind of information they're providing to leadership, that could be the first step. And I did make a formal request to Navajo Nation law enforcement on, and I raised it again yesterday with President Nygren, when Molly was reported missing, what steps were taken, and why an Amber Alert wasn't issued, or why a Navajo Nation internal emergency alert wasn't made. And so we'll be doing a follow-up and making sure that those questions are answered. But he did mention in his response to me that law enforcement did let him know that they did everything they could. And so it's still, there's still areas where I feel in the training, and especially that tabletop discussion when there's a child abducted in Indian country, what is the protocol, and so I'm asking Navajo Nation law enforcement, well, what is your current protocol? And if your current protocol is out of date, which is our concern, and in the training aspect, then how is that impacting the outcome of alerting the community to do the search and rescue, and then the recovery afterwards. So it looks like the data part is, I don't want to say is the canary, but it might be if the whole system there are not using all of the tools and resources available to maximize providing safety to our community members. When there's a missing, whether it's a missing relative, a missing child, we don't discriminate, and we believe that through these conversations and investment, because law enforcement has also received investment in building up their response to our missing persons. And so I'll formally look at that, but I would want to include what we need for the database, and then I'll let EPI know, and that because of the delay, then we can't be delayed. And so any possible agreements that we were going to do in terms of cost sharing might not be an option at this time because of our different timelines. So let me see. Let me go real quick to Shada Sunshine, you have your hand raised.
Yes, good morning. I'm Delegate Crotty. I just wanted to respond and provide some clarification as the DAP co-chair at this time. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I think for the DAP leadership between myself and Chairperson Michael Henderson, we have not been a part of the NTU discussions regarding data as a DAP leadership team. I believe what is going on is it is really a contract or discussion between Navajo EPI and public safety, which is separate. It's with the division itself. So I just wanted to provide that clarification that it's not a DAP leadership initiative. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So help me understand what's a DAP leadership, like just in layman's terms, what's the difference?
Well, between myself and Chair Henderson, we've been making decisions together. So for myself, I'm not aware of anything that is being planned with Navajo Epicenter in terms of contracts or funding with DAP. But I have heard in other discussions that Navajo PD has been working with Navajo Epi separately. So my thinking is that might be what is being discussed. But again, I'm just wanting to provide that clarification because we don't want to delay anything that NTU is doing regarding this initiative. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I see the clarification. So let me give you some background from our meeting in December. So again, Chief Silversmith, and I hope he joins the call, did mention that he would work with our MMDR team on building up the database. And so at that call, they were a no-show. And so I invited epidemiology to join that call in December. And it's my understanding, I did have a connection issue, but it's my understanding at that time in December, epidemiology, because I'm sorry, Chief Silversmith had mentioned they're, building up this partnership with our epidemiology team. And the epidemiology team was not aware of that type of initiative. And so as a task force, we still do not have confirmation if in fact police department is working with the epidemiology office. And so Dr. Gonzalez, from that conversation in December, have you been able to have another meeting with our epidemiology team?
We reached out after that DAP call, after the DAP data team call regarding the status of any requirements from Navajo Nation Police and from the epicenter. The email was not responded to. We received a following communication as part of a presentation delivered by the epicenter. They have provided Chief Henderson a price quote from Accenture, the consulting company that the epicenter uses to co-locate, provide computing and application support as part of the reporting function that the epicenter is responsible for. And we've not heard anything since then. So we've reached out a couple times. We've not been, epicenter did not respond, but we do understand there's a quote for services. I've reached out to the Navajo Tech Group to try to sort out what our next options would be, and that's when I was informed that we should not attempt to delay any prototype development because of the anticipated and/or proposed collaboration between the epicenter and Navajo Police.
Okay, so let's see. And this is the challenge on just how the Navajo Nation government works. The programs are not very, it's in my experience, as my role as a delegate, unless I call and request a meeting, and that still doesn't guarantee a meeting or that something will be done. To schedule a specific call regarding the epidemiology, and then if it's separate from the law enforcement. So Dr. Gonzalez, what you need from Navajo Nation, if you could just jot that down in a summary. Ms. Spencer Shiaji, if you could help me draft a memo. Let me see if OPVP is on the line. OPVP is not on the line, Yolanda Azua. And so we'll send, I think what we'll do is from each of our meetings, we'll send her a weekly memo on the request and information that we need, and then start tracking either if the request, if there was a response, if there's a delay, because when we receive reports at council, there's an assumption or there's an appearance that there's this working collaboration, and that really is not the case.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll move forward. Yes, and that's why this task force was developed, because we had tried at different levels to try to get Navajo Nation to engage and be responsive to our missing and murdered relatives. And so this task force actually includes several different executive programs that should be on the call, like Navajo Nation criminal investigators, Navajo Nation Office of the Prosecutor, Office of the Public Defender, the OPVP's office. Oh, I do see Office of the Prosecutor on the call. Thank you, Ms. Juanita Martinez, for being on the call, and Navajo Nation Police Department. So what we're going to do as a team, since they have not, our staff track, oh, let me lower my hand. Our staff tracks attendance. That's why it's important when you're on the call to make sure that we know that and identify yourself. And so we're sending out memos, letting them know they have not attended or participated in a task force meeting or like these Tuesday calls. And we're having challenges with their non-attendance actually getting like an official quorum. And so it's disappointing because if we had the executive programs participate, then we would have quorum and be in a more official setting. But I didn't also want to delay the work of the task force, and so we're just continuing to do the weekly calls. But I just wanted to let everybody know on the call that's kind of where we're at. And if you want to pull up the legislation, you could see the 8 areas that the task force is focused in on. And one of those areas is the development of missing and murdered and their relatives database. So we'll continue with that work. Appreciate it. So Dr. Gonzalez, that's your, I'll expect to receive that email. I'll look into that. And then Ms. Spencer, if you help me draft up a memo to Office of President, Vice President. So the new Chief of Staff is Sharon Sandoval, who's the former Director of Department of Emergency Management. So we have worked with Ms. Sandoval in trying to finalize the Tribal Community Response Plan. Dr. Gonzalez?
Yes, thank you. I will get a summary and some information for communication to you as well. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, hold on. So what I'm going to do on my end, I'm sharing my screen, and Dell, who runs the Epidemiology Center, did send this out. And so this is on their website. Oh, let me just say, Epidemiology Center, what is that? So there's, I believe, about 12 tribal epidemiology centers across the nation. And so Navajo Nation, we have our own epidemiology center that's housed here at Window Rock. And so I believe last Friday, or could have been, well, the 16th, they posted on their website kind of a snapshot of the Diné Action Plan data work group that we participate in. And so I want to see if do I need to make this larger, or can everybody see it okay on the screen? What I could do here. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's as large as I think I could go. So it does give you just a visual of Navajo Nation and the different jurisdictions with the 4 states. So you can see we do have territories in the state of Colorado. And so Miski is our representative there on the Colorado Missing and Murdered Indigenous Person Task Force. So let me see. This is just some of the acknowledgements in the report. And so it does say Navajo Nations and the Action Plan leadership and colleagues. And so that's where MMDR plays a part in the Diné Action Plan. Let's see, sorry, trying to. So this gives you a little bit of the background of the Diné Action Plan, which we have gone through many times here at our task force, but you are always welcome to download the Diné Action Plan and see how our efforts intertwine and our partnership with Navajo Epidemiology Center. So let's see. So there are methods. And this is more in terms of how the epidemiology office works here on Navajo Nation and all of their partnerships. And so it does go through different cases as a snapshot. And so they do deal with the more mortality data from the New Mexico Department of Health, Bureau of Vital Records and Health Statistics. And so they are looking at the period of 2018 to 2020 and then 21 to 2024. So this is what we're seeing here, just some of the initial data gathering that we'll be using on our different efforts to educate, prevent, and prosecute crimes across Navajo Nation and how it impacts our communities. So I'm going to scroll over the substance use, but we do have a part of the DAP. There is a substance prevention group that will, this is the type of information they're tracking. And so again, some, who gets hospitalized because of alcohol. So it's a really great document just in terms of you're interested in trying to, make Navajo Nation a better place. But here we go where we're, let's see, chart 3. And so this is the violence crude rates from emergency visits from those partners in 2024. And so this is a really high, and I would want to ask Epi, and I'm going to call them Epi, I'm sorry, epidemiology, because of this rate per 10,000, if out of every 10,000, there's 49 assaults by other means. Hold on, let me try to, I got some background noise. And so if we look at assaults by other means, this is where we're going to start. Our data will parallel with some of the violence that we see. And so physical abuse, sexual abuse, illegal intervention, accidental discharge of a firearm, assault by firearm, and firearm undetermined intent. And so if it's an assault by other means, we would need to ask Epi exactly what does that mean, and if that is something, because of the high percentage, if that's something that will work with our advocates in terms of how victims of violence are being collected when it comes to the emergency departments, because for most of the hospitals, I'm not sure if they use all the baseline ways how they collect data, but it does seem, and their their determination that firearms are not playing a major role in most non-fatal assaults. But what we would also look for in some of our missing person cases, there was a history of violence, and in terms of strangulation, in terms of assault, in terms of sexual assault. And so we would want to tease out some of our relatives who go missing, what type of situations that they encountered prior to being reported missing. Because if you remember from the FBI analyst, he did mention there was 6 times on average in his work at that time. There was approximately 6 times the individual who eventually was reported missing had some kind of contact with, at first we thought it was all social services, but it sounds like it's really with the criminal justice system. And so that's why the data is so critical in working with law enforcement, because I believe that if we look at this data and as it tells a story, we could enhance our prevention, community education, and hopefully that will, we'll see a decrease in the data as we're able to test some of our interventions on what works. And so here's just chart 4, talks about the actual hospitalization. And so you could see there, it's mostly assault by other means. So again, we'll have to dig into what exactly that means. So in the last sentence, most violent conditions have too few data to be reported, which is indicated with an NA not available. So in terms of our task force, that's important because we know with some of, when it comes to murdered or missing relatives, those are some of the most violent crimes that are committed. And so we would want the data to be represented in these charts. And again, this is coming from sources that partner with epidemiology. This is not utilizing any of our community-based data. And so I'm just showing you kind of the benchmark where we're at, or where EPI's at in their attempts to collect and correlate some of this data. So this is where you'll see how their trends. And again, this assault by other means, we're going to have to dig deep. And although the trend looks like it's decreasing from 2020 during COVID, it was at 155.2, and 2024, it's at 99.43. So there is a decrease. Again, we'll need to work with the EPI team there to understand exactly what does that mean. And there is also a trend for the hospitalization rates to also decrease. But they have noticed, again, assault is a major concern, that there's been some progress in lowering its impact since 2020. However, there's been an increase in emergency visits due to physical abuse. So another one of our projects is suicide prevention. So chart 5 talks about that data. We'll just skim through here. Let's see. I'm gonna go to, right. So let's talk about some gender difference. And this was some of our task force members on the call. We're talking about how data is collected. Are relatives self-identifying? Are they just using the birth gender? And so it does look like right here, it would be, I'm assuming birth gender, but we would have to ask EPI. So here's the breakdown between male and female. And so you'll see the ratio of harmful use of alcohol in both emergency departments and hospitalization. And so you'll see their assault by other means. And so we're trying to just identify the different data points that in terms of violence in our communities. So again, table 7 indicates the pattern of alcohol being greater burden among Diné males than Diné females. And so here they just, on table 8, have said and identified the gender difference that we see in sexual abuse at the emergency department is 20.41, and hospitalization, they don't see any hospitalization in some of these, some of these incidents. So it looks like, and again, table 8 indicates that sexual abuse impacts the Diné female population more than Diné male population, and that there are no health conditions under consideration within this report in which Diné females have a significantly higher hospitalization rate than Diné males. So we'll have to see again what their data and what does that look like. And so here's some of the largest changes. Harmful use of alcohol to emergency department is increased by 65%. And then harmful use of alcohol hospitalization has increased by 77%. And so I did mention, assault by other means is down, and so it looks like it's down 74%. This is talking about more of, table 9 is talking more about the impacts of alcoholism. And so, but table 10 is important to our team because it does talk about the percent of deaths attributable to violence and substance abuse in the surveillance period. And so you could look at assault at the very bottom is 1.8% and 2%. So I just want to point out right here, alcohol-related deaths on the Navajo Nation each year exceed the deaths caused by a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. And so if you read that paragraph in its entirety, our EPI was very vital in collecting COVID data. And so they did make a comparison between who we lost during the COVID-19 pandemic versus every year the amount of relatives we lose to alcohol-related deaths. And why alcohol plays a part in our missing persons is one of the data points that we could look at is for what type of treatment our relatives have received, and now with the Phoenix, providers basically, victimizing our relatives, has that impact their trust in the system to get treatment. And we could also start tracking when missing persons are reported and if they were considered unsheltered or other areas that could contribute to some of these rates. So this is the last part for right now. Excuse me. So this is what's really important. So this, I think, will also be helpful, Dr. Gonzalez, to understand the limitations. So the results and interpretation of the EDM data is dependent upon accurate and complete classifications of health conditions. Some injuries may not be classified completely to paint the full picture. For example, some injuries could be the result of assault or suicide attempt, but coded as an unintentional injury. This could potentially cause the underreporting of some health conditions. Also, some tribal programs, for example, police, EMS, criminal investigations, may be capturing higher quality data, and we are cultivating those partnerships to share the information currently. So there is, this hope to start including and engaging with the Navajo Nation Division of Public Safety. So I wanted to share this report. This is on the Navajo Nation Epidemiology Center. I think it's just like halfway down, and then you could identify and pull up the report for your reference. So I just wanted to pause here and see if anybody has any questions regarding the report, or again, I did mention that this does not include any of MMDR Coalition's community-based data. It looks like it's not right now have integrated any of the police, EMS, criminal investigations. And but I wanted to see if anybody had any questions or feedback, seeing that this was EPI's first attempt on some of the surveillance. Go back to the beginning. Okay. Does anybody have Lorraine, does anybody have their hand up?
No, I don't see anybody.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go back to the data. Let me see if Twyla, are you on the call, Shadija?
Good morning, Madam Crowdy. Yes, I am.
Oh, yeah, they should be. Thank you. Thank you for, I believe you posted the agenda. So I had a follow-up. We want to make sure, since we're not receiving the Navajo Nation alerts, are you able to track who's being reported missing?
Yes, I can.
Are you?
Is this going to be for the task?
Okay. Right. So what we would have to do is we're gonna have to internally start tracking again, and so it would be a coordinated effort with the MMDR coalition in terms of the cases, because Navajo Nation Police Department's flyer is just strictly for missing relatives who are reported missing on Navajo jurisdiction, and we do need to continue to monitor missing relatives who are reported outside of Navajo Nation jurisdiction. And that's been the request from the family. So we're trying to develop a poster that paints the complete picture.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So
And
I have.
so
Madam,
go ahead.
I have a spreadsheet ready. I want to show you before I post it here. But I'll go ahead and send it over to you.
Well, okay, so before you post it, that's fine. And we have, received the latest report from Detective Begay, but I think that was maybe in October. So it's been nearly 4 months since we received an update from PD in terms of their missing persons. And that's why it's clear the need is that the task force or the MMDR coalition will still anchor and make sure we have that information. Thank you. D. Charlie, Shadija, are you able to unmute and let me know how you're tracking our missing persons cases? Or if anybody's tracking, if you could put a chat or raise your hand, because what I don't want to do is duplicate anyone's efforts and just compliment. And then we'll go to Vanji in terms of the coalition, or Zanaba on how you're tracking and monitoring missing relatives cases.
Hi, good morning. I do apologize about my voice. Thank you, Amber Cardi, for allowing me to speak. Right here, with my tracking, I go off based off of what Navajo Nation is releasing. I go based off of their numbers. But with that being said, we still have, I see the delay. I see the response time. I see no solutions. I continue to see excuses, and I continue to see the solutions, the money being sent in the last 10 years since Ashley and Mike went missing. They had 10 years to get a system in place. And now that Molly had happened, it's a replica, a duplicate. Our people are PTSD. It's a relapse for our community. We're going back to Ashley and Mike's case. We're going back to the time of how does this why? And here comes our community. People are rising, by the way, through this country. This is also the reason I stand at the front lines with the ICE raids, because this is rising our numbers. Our people are being taken here in the Valley. They're taken throughout the US. This is making our numbers rise. Where is the solution here? There should be some data. Like they said yesterday in the Winter Council meeting, it took youth only 2 weeks to create a system to bring a solution. 2 weeks. So all I want to say here to the leaders in your departments, you in here, the state is watching now, by the way. And the state can take this to federal level and kick us all out and take everything, your positions, jobs. And don't expect me to be protesting outside for you guys. That's one thing I got to say in voice, because I help our communities. I hear our communities. I hear our victims throughout the US. And Amber Crotty has been doing her best with the task force. I've seen this task force bringing hope and solutions and proving to this point, City Inn, that there's endless excuses that we hear, seeing the behaviors, seeing the power trips, the control issues, the lack. It is work, I'm telling you the truth. My page is work. I'm 100% volunteer based. I'm not nonprofit. I'm not with any organizations. I run this page as a full-time parent, a single parent. I am a mother to a disabled child. I live off the reservation. I can perform services for my community by setting road information conditions out. I have our community involved. There is involvement, but with sovereign law, you keep us out. With sovereign excuses that was built to protect us, by the way, to protect outside issues from coming into conforming our ways to theirs. But you know what? Sovereign law welcomes them now. It's used against us now to keep our voices silent, to manipulate us. We are awake. There should be something done at this point with these solutions. For all these office saying, I don't know, the answer is, I don't know. That's all I can say. Breaking it down to it, just want to say this at this point, that we got to start getting some information. I was there in 2024 with a family in the chambers with Navajo Nation saying the issue is they didn't have enough law enforcement to cover, and they're investing in cameras now so it can help take over. And we don't have cameras to this day. We still don't have an alert to this day. The same questions that were being asked today is still the same thing we're getting again in 2024, 2025, it's 2026, and this is the way we start 2026. Last week, there was more people in here as well. You know, as in here last week, because I invited more people. Right now, it's like we had trust, and right now is being watched, and we will continue to get the community involved. That is my part of advertising and putting out there to get our community involved as I send out the missing person alerts. And I don't wait for Navajo Nation to post a missing person. You see the delay, 8 hours delay for Molly when she was missing in her neighborhood. 8 hours later, Navajo Nation wants to determine a little girl missing. Here in the city, it takes less than 2. And mind you, there's over 3 million people here. If this city can monitor, and you're saying, oh, they got tax money, you know what? We got money too. Navajo Nation has money, and it's being investigated. We're asking, and we're getting constantly denied this. And this is where it's coming into with these programs, organizations in the Navajo Nation pushing, pointing fingers at people. Don't ever forget what you're doing and why you're there. Please continue to move forward and push each other to be accountable. This is ridiculous to hear that, oh, wow, this is, another finger pointing. I'm not here to parent nobody. I'm here to tell you guys we got solutions, we got answers. We got to move forward with it. But these endless excuses that are coming, I'm sorry, people are going to have to be answering soon. We're not even a full year in yet. And I'm very sorry to have to come forward this way and saying this. But yes, I do have the professional mode page on my account. It does show the interactions. It shows how much people are being alert. It gives me graphs and numbers, but to track missing people, I can answer no, I don't have that data to say it's tracking the missing people, but getting the alerts, the interaction and community involvement, I can tell you by the numbers of how much within 2 hours of the information I send out, how many people. It can get to 30,000 people within the 4 corners of the Navajo Nation and border town, get it within 2 hours. And this is based off of Facebook. This is based off of the page I run for missing person page and the road condition page. The road condition page gets a lot more interactions for our community. It does. I can provide those numbers. It shows on Facebook, it's showing. So yes, there is proof that interaction is there. Our community is listening and getting the information is out there. And I hear the same rude responses that you guys get in public, that you guys get attacked with community members out there in Window in your own office. I get those same rude responses and comments in my inbox, in my comment page, and comic sections, posts made about me. I definitely know how it feels to be in your position, by the way. I know the mental health stress it causes, and it becomes physical too. So thank you everybody for what you're doing today. Stay strong, stay together. Please look out for our community as our MMIP numbers rise with ICE raiding and just taking people, and people posing as ICE agents that are just taking people because of our skin color. Remember, Navajo's, our first language is Navajo. My English does sound a bit broken still. And still, with that being said, I still get questioned and discriminated because of that. So I can be target too. My father also could, my stepfather, I take that back, could be target as well. English is not his first language. He has a heart condition. He needs medications. They do not give medications to these people. They not give them treatment. They don't have no rights once they're detained. So please continue to think of our residents and our people off of the reservation. That's what they're called, by the way. They're not called tribal members. They're called residents. We're called the people. Dene, that's what we are, the people. So thank you guys. Have a good day. I appreciate you, Amber Crowdy, for allowing me to speak, and everyone being here again today. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Shabasia, for just amplifying and how you track your information and share. I know that Miski, one of the founders of Missing and Murdered Relatives Coalition, would also, she uses her Facebook, and the challenge that I see, and I see that Venerable had responded that they follow Navajo Nation Missing Persons Facebook and NamUs, is in our data team, MMDR data team, there's a gap in terms of what's entered when a relative is reported missing. So we're still at that phase, and And that's why we want to collect data from the families in more of like a storytelling in terms of what happened, what were some of the dynamics. We're still hearing reports back that when they call one Navajo Nation district, they still are sent over to another district, and we're hearing that from advocates. So advocates play a vital role on how we collect the real data or the real stories of what's happening on the ground. And all of that needs to be rectified to build up trust. And so, let's see, I wanted to just go back to the chat. Darlene mentioned to request records from BIA under the 638 contract. Yes, that's what we have done. We're waiting for that response. And definitely looking at codifying data collection. And so my attempt at first was just to get the programs, together, because we do have this student action plan that was signed into law with an agreement to work together on these issues, which include missing and murdered and their relatives. So my hope was that there would be a data collection, it would be integrated into programs, but I will definitely look into language in terms of what it will take to codify data collection. We do have requirements for funding, but because law enforcement is primarily funded through the 638 federal contract, that's kind of the information that we've been asking for. And our goal is to get it daily and actually minute by minute, because if NamUs is waiting on Navajo Nation law enforcement to verify, it's not very clear right now who is working with NamUs in a regular updates. And so I wanted to ask for folks who are on the call, is anybody working with NamUs on a regular basis to understand the challenges and the dynamic with entering in missing Navajos, whether they're here on the nation or living in other areas of the country? Regina, you have your hand raised?
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Regina Begay Roanhorse. I work at the Federal Prosecutor's Office. I'm the regional coordinator for MMIP. So basically, in Savannah's Act, it is actually in Savannah's Act that the federal government funds NamUs, number one. And in Savannah's Act, it does say that it should be used. There's some good things to NamUs that have come about when we look at cold cases, especially. So you have coroners from around the United States that look at unidentified remains, and then they try to match based on the work that like Mark Cooley does. They use NamUs a lot and the CODIS system. So in terms of right away, you're correct. I don't see it being a live, within 24 hours, the data is put in, because it's the law enforcement officer that has to put the data in. So Cornelia with NamUs, who is the tribal liaison, I talked to her about this because when I first came on board, I was like, wait a minute, the numbers don't match. What Navajo Nation has on their poster doesn't match what's in the database. And she said, it really is dependent on the leadership for the police department. There are some criminal investigators, some patrol who know how to enter the data right away, and some that don't. And it is my job, she said, to go out and train. And I will go out and train any law enforcement entity off reservation, on reservation, on how to do the data entry. So basically, the data entry in any database really is just as good as what's put into it. So even the database that you're working on with NTU is only going to be as good as what's entered. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is sustainability. So when I worked for the courts for Navajo, we had JustWare. So I was training my clerks on how to put in cases, file, and events and such. But you will find that some users will not put the right information in the right place. So it's a lot about training, and that was my experience with JustWare. Is it sustainable? You know, in the long run, let's just say in 5 years from now, is there going to be an NTU collaboration on MMIP? So those are some things to think about when you look at NamUs, which is actually legislated. They have a tribal liaison. Then the third thing I want to talk about is competency. So I do believe that what FBI in New Mexico does with the NCIC data, is it NCIC? Yeah. The way he explained it is, Gina, I look at the data and I follow up on it as a law enforcement officer. So there's credentials. So if there's a user, what do you call it, mistake, he'll call the law enforcement agency, say, I'm FBI, and they will talk to him. And then he will correct whatever's on the website that he created. So let's go to Colorado. I talked with that person who manages their dashboard. And I asked her, are you a law enforcement officer? She said, yes. It is actually legislated that we have this dashboard and this data available. It's my responsibility to look at NCIC, what's entered by the law enforcement for the county or the state or the tribal, and follow up. You can believe me that I was thinking about competency. So you have to trust the data that it's entered correctly is what I'm saying. So with NamUs, there's potential if the Navajo law enforcement is actually required to put the data in within a certain time period, any law enforcement agency. So that data is held there. And when I go in and I start working on missing cases, that I can look on the public side. I can actually look on the public side, figure out which law enforcement agency to contact, and then go through my channels. So Mark Pooley and I talked about this a lot because he works at the Center for Human Identification. And I know it can work. It's just, like I said, the law enforcement has to be trained. The user input has to be there. I don't know, like, how many of the districts in Navajo have been trained. But, you know, Cornelia is there because she has a law enforcement background, criminal investigation background. There are many people, I think, just to say good things about Mark's group. They have identified at least 57, I think he said, missing murdered Indigenous people, because sometimes they're not within the jurisdiction. They may end up in another state. It may take years, but some people never give up, especially these coroners, these anthropologists. So I do work with Cornelia. I was going to email her to see if I can find out if she can do more training. And it's not just Navajo, but if you look at the UCR data, the link that I sent you, I don't know if you saw that, Delegate Crotty. really San Carlos Apache has more violent crime than Navajo based on the NCIC data by numbers. So I want to go down to San Carlos, but just to say that I don't know how that that database works at the FBI when they do analyzing of the NCIC data by sexual assault, deadly assault with a deadly weapon, murder. You know, I don't know how they do it, but I'll try to find out. But I hope that data link was informative, because if you scroll down in my email, I highlighted the tribe that has the most violent crime, and it's not Navajo. It's actually San Carlos Apache has more violent crime as reported. So Navajo is PD is using NCIC, and that will show in that report. I hope this is helpful to get thoughts going. I know we need to do a sustainable effort. Madam Chair, I want to go on a personal note. I was a tribal prosecutor 1991 to 2000 in Window Rock, Crown Point, Alamo, Cayucito, Rama. There has been no change, but at least now, you know, there is a coalition and task force. And that's why I'm on board, is because I want to see change. I want to see the violent crime rates go down. So complicated, but I'm with everybody. I'm doing what I can. We need to sustain this effort on this data collecting, and I hope that things will change in the future, but I'm not sure about that. So make sure the database and the people working on it are still working on it for another 10 years, maybe. I don't know. These are some thoughts I've been having, because 1990, that was what, 30 years ago? And I was actually doing the trial work. I went up against public defenders. I was a district prosecutor. I took cases to court for child abuse and neglect, sexual abuse, assault. I did it. And I already know what's going on in the Navajo Nation. You need more police officers. Victim advocates need to be at the police stations, I think, to do all of the work with the patrol and the CIs, not after the fact, on the ground, is my recommendation. And that will give information to the people. An MMIP coordinator at the prosecutor's office who has a license to practice law is a good idea, because they can give advice and do all the coordinating pieces for prosecutors, CI, and patrol section. And I really want to stress that, because that would be a counterpart that I can work with on my level, and along with that prosecutor's office. So just so you know, that, you know, all of the things that you've been talking about, the changes to Title 17, prosecutor's office is correct. I work for the court, so the victim rights do attach. There's an alternative sentencing provision in Title 17 that judges use. I know that because I've seen them use it. So there's a lot I can say about that, but I won't go into that. Anyway, thank you for your time, everyone.
Oh, appreciate it, Shada. Thank you for giving us that insight. And so I would want to ask, from the USDOJ perspective and your data, how do you get the most current data of our missing relatives that identify as a Navajo citizen?
With Colorado, I use their system because when you're talking about off reservation, it appears to be more off reservation because, you know, we have a large population. With Arizona, they don't publish any kind of dashboard. So you have to dig for the information. And then New Mexico's pretty good about it. The only thing is FBI agent does that work, and he didn't know if he was going to continue to do it. So I've asked FBI here in Arizona, and they pretty much have not gone that far. So I'm still working on that. I wish Valora would, you know, assist me because that's important in Utah. Let's see, there's no task force functioning in Nevada either. But for me, what I do is I go to NamUs first. And that's where I need to work with Cornelia more, because I need to find out if she's gone to all of the tribal nations. And the off reservation, I got to figure out if the off reservation law enforcement are entering into NamUs as well. Then I don't have credentials for NCIC, but that link that I sent you doesn't have case names. It just has numbers of assaults, and therefore, so yeah, it is kind of frustrating because private databases, I'm like, how did you get this information? Is it competent? So I tend to kind of stray away from that because I'm not sure if someone like Don Metzmeyer has worked on it. Colorado, I'm pretty confident in the data there. So I think more work needs to be done. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I just need to break through to the states that have a large populations of Navajo people. I'm still working on New Mexico. I mean, New Mexico, it appears they're good, but what about the off reservation? So I need to get back with Don Metzmeyer. But you know, right now the focus is on immigration, and but I'm still here. I'm still working. We'll see what happens. I survived so many threats to my position, but you know, I'm still here. So until the very last day, I'll be working on these issues with you.
Okay. Appreciate that commitment, and we'll be here every Tuesday working on these issues. And our goal is, you know, kind of like a time frame on what we're requesting and recommending, because we have made some progress, and in other areas like the Amber Alert, I'll tell you, you know, completely devastated that there was a delay there. But okay, and so I wanted to ask Dr. Gonzalez if we don't know the future of the FBI agent out of New Mexico, I could do a follow-up with, you know, at a federal level in terms of the funding, if it was like discretionary funding, how we can maintain that. That could be part of our tribal consultations, because I'm going to be submitting the violence against women consultations. I could add that in. Let me just write a note real quick. And Dr. Gonzalez, so in our meeting with FBI, I know that New Mexico Department of Justice, their portal relies on his information, but maybe if we could get a better sense from him on how he collects his information. He's willing to come, I mean, he's going to come back to the task force, but he wanted some like specific questions to ask so that he could get permission. So if you could help us draft what we would need from the FBI analyst, that would be great. And understanding that he may be assigned to another area. So if we could get that as soon as possible, that would be great. And then Regina, if you have any suggestions to ask so that he could get permission to engage in that conversation with us.
Delegate Crowdy, this is Gil. In our conversations with the FBI, I mean, again, it was a good example where the public data is I'm not going to say it's unremarkable because it's important. It's important data they make available from NCIC. As with many of the other applications, I don't know all of them, but certainly with NamUs is a good example, as well as New Mexico. Those applications were built to support public safety efforts with cases and additional information, etc. As far as I understand, what NTU has asked me to do under your direction is not to build another NamUs. That's not the intent, or to build another New Mexico application. And I understand many of the questions about building an application, supporting, etc. There are three fundamental differences of what you've asked Navajo Tech to do, which is different than most all the others. Is it's actually intended to improve communication with the families. The public safety has lots of tools to help them, whether they use them or not, whether they're trained. Frankly, those are other issues that need to be dealt with. And then the second major issue is the university is interested in doing long-term research and to make MMDR a research initiative for the university to support all the universities in the region and those around the country and the world that want to do fundamental work on primary research on the issues associated with MMDR topics, because it can be criminology, it can be law, it can be any other things. And the third issue is on sustainability is that Navajo Tech will be around. And I do expect them to put funding into supporting this project as it matures, because it's got staffing requirements, it's got technical requirements. They want to get into they want to be a supportive collaborator with Navajo Nation. So is Navajo Tech Arizona State? No, it's not. But the intent is that universities have a long-standing position and location in these communities, and they intend to adopt and support these this project specifically in the long term. And to be blunt here, I'm not the right person to represent that. Dr. Arvizo is. This is his direction that I'm following, and I suggest we ask Dr. Jason Arvizo to come and represent and inform the direction which NTU intends to take beyond an allocation from Navajo Nation, which includes, and going back to your point, Delegate Prati, sustainability. So if I could, I'm not really the right person to represent the MMDR initiative at Navajo Tech. I'm a consultant helping to write an application and to get it close as I can to the expectations of these various groups. But I do think that it's the type of collaboration between the university and the Navajo Nation community. It makes great sense, and I fundamentally believe that Dr. Guy and Dr. Arvizo are leading that direction. And so having me on these calls is helpful to me, frankly, but it's the university that you propose collaboration with. And it doesn't take anything away from NamUs or New Mexico or Arizona. It's as everyone on this call understands much better than I do, it's a complicated issue. It needs to be less complicated, but it needs the persistence and the attention all of you have put towards identifying these issues, working through the problems, and getting a better environment to support these families that I'll say it this way, desperately need the help. And I'll stop there. So yes, I will also get you some additional questions for the FBI. But again, their focus is on public safety. It's not on the community. It's not the families. And if they intend to build or extend their product or application to be more family oriented, more communication with the impacted entities in these circumstances, it would be helpful for them to say that someplace, because that's not the message we heard from them. I mean, it was clearly not that, actually, to be blunt. Good or bad, I'm not questioning the state of New Mexico or Arizona, Utah, or Colorado. It's just they're focused primarily on supporting public safety, which again makes sense.
Yeah, right, and it makes sense, and that's why we're self-funding this initiative on how important it is to be family-centered and to listen to the needs of surviving family members. And so I appreciate that you see that distinction there. I wanted to, the final ask from Regina is when you meet with Cornelia, because I'm not, remember we talked about my constraint as a delegate with all of the vetoes to my funding, so I don't have any travel funding, you know, stemming from President Nygren's vetoes. I made him aware of that yesterday, that we've been self-funding all of this travel the last 4 weeks. So, I mean, 4 months. So with that being said, if you could help me, and when you talk to Cornelia, is how often should we be engaging in a conversation? Because I would want to know how many individuals that NAMUS is waiting for Navajo Nation law enforcement to verify, or if it's other law enforcement when it comes to an identified Navajo citizen who's reported missing in NAMUS, if they're waiting for another law enforcement agency. I would want to create immediate channels to get that, you know, squared away, so that there, if it sounds like if individuals here on the call are relying on NAMUS, that could be a way for us to improve and make sure information is posted. And we'll start tracking with this database. We're going to be tracking when the family called. We're going to be looking like at dispatch records and following up. So thank you. So Alicia, you're on the call. Shadeja with Vital Records. Thank you for joining us. Apologize that you had some challenges, but let me know where we're at in terms of Vital Records. You have the *6, I believe, if you're calling in from a phone. I know she's been having some. Okay, we can hear you now. Yes.
Okay. Yes, it was explained in the council yesterday about the issue on the signature. So we do have the ball rolling on the ID supplies. We are taking appointments. We do have our window open for taking appointments and issuing the IDs. So there's no real issues anymore on the Navajo Nation IDs, and just obtaining the supplies that are on order or pending from the vendor. And I believe Ms. Spencer wanted me to speak on when an individual is approached by ICE, what we recommend them to do. I think that has been pretty much well covered by the President's office and other entities, indicating that to stay calm and to stay aware of your surroundings and not to raise any issues with the agents. And what we're recommending for people to obtain as well is a real ID. And I think there was some issues at the cost, but I was able to look it up yesterday on the Arizona MVD website, that it is $25 to obtain that real ID. There's just more documents that would need to be furnished at that time. And of course, all that information is on their website. So if there are any other questions, that's just what I needed to portray on the Vital Records behalf.
Okay, appreciate that. What we could do, Shadeja, if we receive any other requests for information, we'll contact your office. I just want to let you know some feedback yesterday from some of the advocates who are assisting relatives in the urban areas is they're calling that Operation Rainbow Bridge phone number, I believe, or the number provided. And it's either ringing or it will go into like a message, but there's no information and no way to leave a message. So if you're part of those immediate conversations, if we could get that rectified, so that if there's any delay in terms of a request to vital records, we want the Navajo Nation response to be adequate, right? Dee, you had a comment?
Oh, yeah. I would also like to ask the vital records, with this being said, that I went to Window last year to get a copy of our CIBs when we were already being questioned out here in the South. So this spark of us, the increase should have been expected, because we've already been facing these issues in the South as of last year. And this was an issue we'd faced in 2020 during the pandemic. With this being said, I went there earlier last year to get my kids and I's records, CIBs, and I had to get there by a certain time frame, and the offices were closing at 2 p.m. Are those hours being extended everywhere? That's also including Tuba City. I've been told different hours of us to get there, that we have to be there by a certain time frame, and you're not accepting tribal members that are coming in after a certain time frame, especially for us traveling in. And mind you, many of us work off of the reservation and live off of the reservation, the parents. So it's important for these hours to be accommodated and changed, and should have been publicly notified as well, that after 2 p.m. you are not allowed, they will not help you. Let's just say that public records, vital records there, I'm sorry, the CIB office does not have the proper hours to service our community too. So I would like to bring attention to that, to make sure that the hours are accommodated through the proper business hours from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 4:30, just like here in the city. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that. That's actually a concern that I've heard. Yeah, can you give us some feedback, Alicia? Thank you.
Yes, that is no longer the case. We're open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, rotating our lunch, so we're also open during the lunch hour.
That's wonderful news. I want to thank your staff for helping to accommodate the current need, or I know that your office is always busy, and our hope is that as the ERP is rolled out, that individuals at some point we could have some locations in the urban areas where relatives don't have to come all the way back home just to access information. So I know that's an ongoing long-term request. So thank you for that update. Is there a way, Alicia, where would I find that Vital Records has announced their office hours? Would we find that on Operation Rainbow Bridge so we could share that information?
We can. I don't think we've shared it with Operation Rainbow Bridge, but we certainly can do that. I can reach out to them to change that, and then it's all on our website. It's all been updated recently, and to reflect those hours as well.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate that. So on our end, we'll help to spread the word, or if we receive any information. Again, I just met earlier with Coconino County Supervisor Lena Fowler, and so understanding the challenges when it comes to a delayed birth certificate and how that impacts Navajo Nation and some of the documents that our relatives need. And so I appreciate the work that you're doing, and thank you for joining the call. So I'm going to start transitioning off of this call because the council is in session, and so by law I need to attend that meeting. But I appreciate everybody who's on the call. We'll be back next Tuesday from 8:30 to 10 discussing the issues. And Regina, thank you for sharing in the chat. Our reader or our little AI assistant will pick up all of the chat. And so we'll just continue to create this. Oh, hold on. So Andrea, I think yeah, it'll pick up all the chats, and I just want to go through. We'll follow up with Gallup in terms of their request for assistance with homicide. I think we have CI from Shiprock on the call. So if they could follow up with Gallup regarding the homicide and missing cases. Okay. And so Ms. Milford, Andrea just wants to let you know that she actually Googled your office right now, and it still is the hours of 9 to 2. So we'll, maybe that's a DIT issue where we'll get that information, and then collectively we will wait for that information to be posted and to provide that information. Thank you. I think someone named user just identified that was 33 calls from the office of, or I'm sorry, that's not the office, that's Operation Rainbow Bridge Line. Okay, thank you. Collectively, we could work on these issues, and take care, and we'll talk soon. Oh, I'm sorry. Yolanda Azua with the President's Office. Abiga. Okay, Yolanda, maybe that's where you could help us get these new extended operation hours for vital records, and we could just help the community, like education to the community. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you. We'll talk soon. I'll go on that.